Part 10 is setting up the FTP, which stands for File Transfer Protocol. So this is how you're going to transfer files to and from your website directly from your desktop without having to log into your one-in-one control panel to access those files. So again, you want to click on the Rubik's Cube icon and go to your control panel. So if you're zoomed in, or if you have your window minimized, or your window isn't maximized, of course you can hit click on the hamburger icon to access the navigation, and you can scroll down to secure FTP account. Otherwise, in your home page, you can scroll down to the hosting box and click on secure FTP account. So you've got a master FTP account to access your root folder, which is the main web space where all of your websites or all of your files will be hosted. So you can click on this blue button to set a password for your root. I recommend opening your folder structure and double clicking the FTP text document, minimizing the folder, and pasting all of your root FTP settings into this text document. So by default, you have a server, a port number, protocol, username, a password. You don't necessarily need the personal note or the directory, but we're going to just copy all of this anyways and paste it into our notepad. And of course, you want to kind of fix it a little bit to make it easier to read. So by default, it puts each title and the data for that title on a new line. Sometimes I like to hit enter twice and draw a few extra some dashes to separate two different FTP accounts. So if you want to create another FTP account for a specific folder or for a specific user to access a specific folder, then you can hit enter twice in your text document, come back over to your browser, and let's see, we're gonna go back to find out how to create a new. Okay, so you click the back button inside of your control panel, and you have the option now to create a new user. So you want to click on create new user. So we're just going to create a user. You don't necessarily have to do this if you will be the only one accessing the server, but just in case you need to know how to create new users for specific folders, this is where you'd go. So you type in a username. So we'll say, in my case, I'll use Corey. Password, personal note, access to this specific website, and I'm going to change the directory to the folder that our website will actually, our WordPress website is actually sitting. So in our case, it's Third Coast Detailing. I'll click save, and I'll click save again. I need to mention, we've got our password here. It's actually, of course, that's already blocked out for us, but you want to make sure that you do add your password and actually change your password to what your real password would be in your text document. In my case, I'm not going to do that since I'm live streaming. But as you notice here, the directory will show a / and a period for root access. This directory shows a / and an actual folder title, right? So we've got a server, a port number, a protocol. In some cases, this will be FTP instead of SFTP. But since we've registered our website with an SSL certificate, by default, this is set to SFTP. Our username, so our default username is just a series of letters and numbers. A new username is going to have a dash appended with whatever name you choose for the new user. Your password, a personal note, and the folder. So of course you want to click file save, Control S or Command S, depending on if you're using a Windows or a Mac. And we're going to kind of minimize this as well. So now we've got our FTP text document. We've got our database text document from the previous video. Let me go ahead and show you how to access your files via FTP since we just created an account. I can minimize my browser and we're going to open FileZilla, assuming that you've already installed FileZilla using the previous videos. So when we're in FileZilla, in the very top, we have a clear window which is going to show the current files that are being actually the current connection status will show in this top window. On the middle left hand side, you have two rows. These rows are going to show your local computer. So whatever folders I have in my local computer, I can access them here. And whichever folder or location I actually have selected in the top left hand row, the bottom left hand row will show whatever files, folders, or content is actually in that folder. So right now I've got, let's say I select my documents. Inside of my documents, I have these folders here that I can browse through from my local computer. We won't really use this section too often, so it's okay for you to kind of minimize that. On the right hand side, you have your remote site that you'll be connected to. So using our default FTP data, you're going to have your root access, which means this section should show that you're in the root folder, and this bottom section will show what files and folders are in that root folder. Because we created a new user, if we log into the FTP using this information, in the right top hand section we should see that the folder we're connected to by default is Third Coast Detailing, which is in the root folder. So if there are other folders in the root folder, we won't have access to them because we'll be by default inside of this folder specifically for this WordPress website. So this is good if you're installing websites for other clients and you want them to have FTP access to their folder only. When you create a new user, they will only be able to access what's in the contents of their WordPress website. And then the folders and files inside of that WordPress website folder will show up here in the bottom right hand column and row. In the very bottom, we have the files that are being transferred, that are queued to be transferred. So if you're dragging a file over from, let's say, from your website or from your local desktop to your website, which I'll show you an example of in a second. If I were dragging a file over here, it would put that file in the queue to be transferred. And then as that file is uploading, once it's finished uploading, it will show up in the successful transfers tab. So you'll have a number down here that shows you how many files are ready to be sent over. And when those files are finished, that same number should actually show up over here when the process is complete. If you have any number that shows up in this middle tab, that means those specific files did not transfer to your website. So you can go and find those individual files based on the directory that's listed and transfer those files again over to your web space, and make sure that they successfully transfer. So let's go ahead and connect to our FTP account now using the new server, the new FTP settings that I created. And if you don't create a new user, you can use those default settings. So what you want to do is click File, Site Manager. You want to click on New Site. And we're going to change the title of this new website to the title of your website. You can use capital letters and spaces. And hit enter. Okay, and in your host, you want to go ahead and copy your server information and paste it into the host. We're going to copy the port number. We're going to change the protocol from FTP to SFTP. We'll change the login type to normal. We're going to go and grab our username and type in your password. You can click on OK, or you can click connect. Either one. If you click OK or connect, it should save the information, but we're going to go ahead and click connect. And you can choose to always trust this host if this unknown host key window pops up, and click OK. So in the very top window, we have the connection status: connecting, connecting, or connected, retrieving directory, listing directory, directory listing successful. So here we are in the Third Coast detailing folder. It's not going to show the folder name here by default, and there are no files here. So now I'm going to go to File, Site Manager, New Site, and I'm gonna name this Third Coast Root, and click enter. And of course, you can always go back and change. Okay, let me go ahead and enter these details. So host name, port number, SFTP normal, username, and password. Remember, the password is case sensitive, along with the username and server name. They should all be case sensitive. If you copy and paste everything, you should be fine. Click on connect. And you can abort the previous connection if you're connecting to a new account, or you can establish the connection in a new tab if you're trying to stay connected to two different websites. So I'm going to open this in a new tab and click OK. So now I have this left tab that is my Third Coast detailing folder, which is on my server. So this should be Third Coast detailing. This should be the files that are in Third Coast detailing. Inside of my root, which is the default FTP data, we actually should have logs and Third Coast detailing folders in here. So what's in this folder is actually what you should see here. So we're going to do a test transfer of data. So inside of our root, we have two folders that are listed in the remote site row. In the files row, we have not only the two folders, but actual files that are in here. So this section just shows different folders that you can open and connect to, and this section actually shows the files that are in that folder. This section will never show any files, just the folders, just the I guess you can call them the databases. So I'm going to open Third Coast detailing. You know, I can always go back to logs, or I can always go back to the root folder. If you're in the file structure, you can double click Third Coast detailing, and if you want to go back to the root, you can double click the 2 dot folder. Now I'm back in the root. So I'm just going to send over, let's see, a file from my desktop, maybe an image. So I've got a my desktop, some images on my desktop pulled up here. I'm just going to grab one small image, and I'm going to drag this image into my root folder. So we can always move it into a specific folder within the root. I can always bring this into a folder inside of my, what would you call these? Well, inside of the folders in the root as well, but directories, I guess, is the best word. So inside of the logs directory or the third coast detailing directory. But instead, I'm just going to transfer this into my root. So at the very bottom, you should see queued files 1. And once that file is transferred, a pop-up might show up in the bottom right-hand corner of your window, your main monitor if you're using multiple monitors like I am, and successful transfers 1. No failed transfers. So if I go back to the first tab, which is my personal FTP access to the third coast detailing folder, I'm not going to see any files in this directory because we transferred this image to the root and I don't have access to the root. So if I'm the admin, I can go back and grab this image and pull it into the third coast detailing directory. Now, if I go back to the third coast detailing directory, let's refresh the file and folder list. So there's a refresh button at the very top. If you're already connected, you might want to click refresh. If someone else is transferring files into your directories, now I have the image here that I can go and download to my computer or do whatever with. But I only have access to everything inside of my WordPress website folder if a user account was created for me. Otherwise, if I'm the admin, I have access to every folder. So I'll go in here and delete this file. Yes, remove it from the server. I'll go back to the default root directory. I'll refresh the personal account and that file will be removed.